content presented is for entertainment purposes only. Some content may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. So I made a mistake. I apologize. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do a live video today. So I'm going to go ahead and record this one really quick and get it uploaded before I head out to support my wife, who's doing a little function tonight. And I just want to make sure I'm there supporting her. So there's some possible death benefits being denied to unvaccinated families, which I found very interesting. It's really interesting that we live in a day and age now where people think it's okay to take away people's rights to choose, which is very unconstitutional. It's very anti-American. It's actually very scary. So I have a couple of links to these wonderful little articles here, so you guys can check them out as well. Would love to hear your thoughts and feelings about them. So let's read a little bit. These days, workers who refuse to get vaccinated against COVID-19 may face financial repercussions, from higher health insurance premiums to loss of their jobs. Now, the financial fallout might follow workers beyond the grave. If they die of COVID and weren't vaccinated, their families may not get death benefits they would have otherwise have received. New York's Metropolitan Transportation Authority no longer pays a $500,000 death benefit to the families of subway, bus, and commuter rail workers who die of COVID if the workers were unvaccinated at the time of death. It strikes me as needlessly cruel, said Mark Dabrowski, a lawyer at Dabrowski Sherman. I'm going to butcher this name. I apologize. Casciari, maybe. Reynolds in Chicago, who represents workers in benefit disputes. Other employers have similar concerns about providing death or other benefits to employees who refuse to be vaccinated. So as we all know, President Biden has given a mandate for any businesses with 100 or more employees to get vaccinated or be regularly tested, so like every week. I could be wrong, but it seems like there might be some shenanigans happening here, helping to push the mandate agenda, and I wonder if any of them got paid. It always seems if people aren't necessarily on the political ideology choo-choo train that people like to get on. If they're not getting with the program, a lot of these people and individuals, especially multi-billion-dollar industries, have very, very deep pockets. Now, this is my tinfoil hat, of course. I don't know exactly what the exchanges might have been, or if they were at all. But for me, it's highly suspect. When now some insurance companies are starting to get on board with this and basically making it miserable for people who have a God-given right to choose what they do with their bodies and what they put in with their bodies. And basically force people like, hey, if you die of this, and what sucks is that we know that there was a lot of cases that were overreported, but I digress. But now it's branching into the insurance world. And so not only are there government companies, because, it's the rail system, right? Metropolitan Transport Authority. So this is actually, local government stuff. And now they're refusing to pay out for workers who pass away due to COVID, if they're unvaccinated. Now, here's my feelings on this, is that I feel we have a right to choose. I feel we live in a country here in America where we can do what we will. If there's a vaccination out or whatever, we can choose or choose not to, utilize it. And I very much disagree with the mandates. I feel it's important to have options. I feel that all options should be made available. And I feel that options that are available and that are potentially they're potentially good for people, that information should not be what's the word? Suspended? No. Mitigated? I don't know. I don't know. My English is not working well today. I haven't been feeling completely well. No, I don't have the Rona. Don't ask. But I feel like that information should not be suppressed. Like for instance, ivermectin was, very suppressed, especially over some social media sites such as Facebook and YouTube, where people were being silenced over these kinds of things, being demonetized, being deplatformed. People are canceling people over this kind of stuff. And it's like, if you want people to get to feeling better or take preventative measures, it seems that the reasonable person would go, this has worked in the past for other things. Let's see if this works for this particular thing. And there have been studies that certain things and regimens, protocols that work very well. And it just baffles my mind. Like I'm seriously just like, I'm in absolute awe that people would do that. And it's absolute craziness in my mind that people are doing whatever they can. It almost feels like that the government is trying to create like more classism, Oh, you're not vaccinated? Okay, well then you can't go out to eat. You can't go shopping. You can't go out to a comedy show. You can't go see a movie. You can't fly. And now you no longer have a job. So you're going to get vaccinated? That's, this is my tinfoil hat talking, of course. These are just my thoughts and opinions. It bugs me. It bugs me because businesses can do this. Like not even think about this as a local governmental entity, as New York's Metropolitan Transportation Authority. But like just regular businesses can just be like, okay, everybody now has to have a different color hair than what they currently have. And if you don't, you no longer have a job with us. Now it sounds very silly. And I know people are just like, well, that's kind of a lame comparison, but because it's, more serious, obviously, but it's just silly. Because I feel like the majority of people in this world are reasonable, fairly smart, fairly informed, just regular people out there. I feel would look at this and go, this is not right. This is not good. This is not okay. And which is really interesting, is that we've pushed all of this. The government has, opened up the coffers for aid, for people who have lost their jobs due to COVID or have had to quit their jobs due to, vaccination mandates. And we're seeing the repercussions of that. We're seeing that this kind of model that's being pushed out by the politicians and our president and the individuals that are part of their team and on this steam train that's going to roll over people because we said so and you should do it and get it done. But who's going to take these individuals' places? Once they realize that, if they get hurt on the job, let's say they contracted COVID while they're in the hospital because, there are people that are, going to the hospital and urgent care and stuff like that with these symptoms, and they contract it just because they're in the general vicinity because, there are people in the hospital that are going that have these things. And if they die, either complications because they were injured, or let's say they do die due to complications of COVID, and then their insurance isn't going to pay out, and their company who gives benefits aren't going to pay out. What's going to happen to those families? What's going to happen to those families? What's really interesting about the left is that they always perpetuate this ideology of we're all about people. We're all about inclusivity. We're all about, helping the homeless and tolerance. But if people refuse to do what they want them to do because they should have a choice, that seeming tolerance seems to go away. Anyways, let's see how much it costs for average funeral cost USA. We'll do 2021. See what we get here. So the average funeral cost was around $9,000. In 2021, the cost is expected to stay between $9,500 to $12,500. Wow. So if insurance doesn't pay out, let's say for your significant other's passing, and then your company doesn't pay out, that's a lot of money to take care of your loved one. Not only to lay them to rest, but also what about, what do they call it? Bereavement? Time off to grieve, to work through knowing that someone close to you has passed away, especially if it's a significant other or a spouse. Most Americans, most average people have a hard time taking care of $1,000 car repair out of nowhere. And unfortunately, most of the time that goes onto a credit line of some sort, and then they have to pay it off over time. And hopefully they can pay it off before the next repair comes up. So if the government is going to mandate business employees to vaccinate and pay for it, obviously they need to pay for the tests, if they're going to do weekly testing or whatever. I'm totally okay with that. If my job came to me and said, hey, we're going to have to mandate this now. However, you do have another choice. You can get tested, on Monday at the beginning of every week. I'm okay with that. That's an okay middle ground. But what sucks is all of these vaccines that are being pushed out. Like, you can just walk in to anywhere and just get it for free. So who's paying for that? Well, people might think, oh, well, that's the government paying for that. But in the end, it's going to be the taxpayers that's going to pay for all these tests. It's going to be the taxpayers or the business owners pay for these tests, paying for these vaccines and stuff like that. So are our liberties in jeopardy? Are they in jeopardy? So President Joe Biden has learned hard on businesses to make sure their workers are vaccinated. In September, the administration announced all employees with 100 or more workers would be required to either ensure they're vaccinated or test employees every week, right? So here's the problem here. This is another thing for people to be divided on and be divisive about, where we come together on things. And that's what kind of sucks about what's being perpetuated on social media, mainstream media, and even those that are very polarizing on the right and the left. That it's a really terrible compounding equation that just keeps getting bigger. Now, I'm not anti-vax. Like, I think it's really important for people to have these things. Number one, if they want them, but number two, if things do get out of hand or things get to the point where people are, dying at a very incredible and scary rate. Because what's interesting, from what I understand from, the CDC and FDA, it looks like from the numbers I'm seeing, it's about a 97% survival rate worldwide. And it's like, I think it's like 0.03 or 0.07 of a percent, in America. Like, we have some of the best doctors and physicians and care facilities and hospitals in the world, in my opinion. So I'm also pro-liberty and freedom of choice. Like, I think it's important to be like, hey, if you want to get this, like if you want a flu shot, go get a flu shot. If you want to vaccinate, go vaccinate. If you want to do these things, you should be able to do it. But sadly, there is this mandate in place. However, there is good news that there is a second option. My concern is with businesses, both in, government, like, transportation, with this particular transportation in New York, or even other regular businesses, decide to go, no, that second option is not really available because we're a business. And because of our freedoms, we're going to choose to mandate this, period. So if you want to keep your job, you got to do this. Otherwise, you can leave. And that's where we're struggling right now with our transportation issue. Not only was there so much help from the government to keep people afloat while they didn't have a job, but people aren't going back to work. Well, I don't want the government to pay my wage. I do not want the government to give me money to pay my bills. I just want the resources so I can get to the point where I can make the money that I want to make. And I can take care of my family. I can take care of myself. I'd love to be able to take care of my parents, my grandparents. I think people are going to be like, but Jacob, are you denying that there isn't COVID? No. No, I'm not denying that. I have very close people, not only my family, but in my workplace, my previous workplace, and even my current workplace, where people have gotten COVID. Now, the greater majority of them had, regular flu-like symptoms, got over it after a few days, did their mandatory, quarantining in their home, and then they were able to go back to work. Now, there was some who had very adverse reactions. One of the guys I hired as a technician a couple years back, he had it so bad that he had really bad pneumonia in both of his lungs. He had to be hospitalized. I think he was in the hospital for like 2 or 3 days before they would let him go back home and finish through his thing. He was sick for about a week. But I know people who had symptoms for like a day. It was just like, oh, I just had the sniffles. I got tested a week later, and sure enough, I had COVID. So it's like, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a politician. I'm just someone with a microphone that talks about interesting things into this nebulous cloud called the internet. But what makes me wonder is if we had such a nationwide following of the mask mandates, because then we closed down everything, right? I'm just curious in our current government administration, if they decide to fully mandate these vaccines with no options. I'm kind of curious because the way people on the left who are very pro-vaccinate is seeming like there's tactics not only in business, but it seems that there's individuals who feel like it's their prerogative to be a vigilante and shame people into vaccinating. Again, it's another polarizing thing that's happening in our world. But what are we going to do when that happens? What are we going to do when businesses decide to say, we're keeping our doors closed until you decide to do what we've told you to do or what we want you to do? And then what's going to happen to all these families or these individuals who no longer have an income or not able to provide? And that really scares me. I don't think that the American people are going to get on board with it if that happens. And honestly, with the mask mandates and the closure mandates that we did for almost a year, and many other places who decided to keep closed even longer, or how about the very stringent closure mandates that were happening across the globe? I think Australia had it the worst. Like, people were being beat in the streets because they went outside to walk their dog or something. But I really do believe, like, I always have a positive outlook because I have to believe that the majority of the people in these positions, the majority of the people in this world are reasonable people. And that eventually they're going to get to the point where the right, the left, the center can get together and be like, okay, we can all agree that closing down our economy, that shutting all the doors to all of our businesses is not good for us as a whole. And honestly, that's one of many reasons I started a podcast, is because I'm really scared that the government may do that again, where they might close everything down and send everybody home and be like, all right, everybody, we're taking the next 6 months off. Everybody's going to their homes. everybody's just chilling at home. Excuse me. And I mean, thank God, I ended up in a position where it was considered what did they call it? The essential workers. Like, I was delivering packages. Like, honestly, thank God I got into that, because if I didn't have that, I don't think I would have had a job during that time. I wouldn't have been able to make income. I wouldn't have been able to provide for my family. I want to get to the point where I'm self-sufficient. Like, I do not want to rely on the government. I don't want to rely on their programs. I just want to make what I want to make, doing the things that I want to do, so I can live the life that I want to live. And isn't that like the general American dream? Isn't that why people immigrate to America? So that they can have that dream. Among employers, there's a frustration level, particularly at this point when these vaccines are fully approved, said Carol Harnett, president of the Council for Disability Awareness, an industry group. You're trying to protect yourselves and your employees, both from themselves and the general public. Wow. Trying to protect yourselves and your employees, both from themselves and the general public. I don't think anybody asked for help. But this is, in my opinion, very tyrannical when it gets to the point where people are just like, we just need to force people because we want to protect them from themselves. Now, I get it. There's probably some instances where people need to step in to take care of other people that can't take care of themselves. People with schizophrenia is a very good example, because they can't take care of themselves. They need to go, they need to get treatment. They need to be in a facility. That makes sense. But when somebody says, going back to my hair analogy, is that everybody's dyeing their hair blue now. Because if you don't have blue hair, the red hairs are going to make you get blue hair. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't compute in my mind. Because the last time I checked, we're in America. Yes, they have been approved by the CDC and FDA, including some of the booster shots. But what I found very interesting, and you can Google this. I don't have a link of this right here next to me. But what was really interesting was that when they got approved for the initial vaccines, which was really quickly. I mean, they had them, 9 months after the lockdown? Maybe a year, maybe less than a year. Had them ready to go, ready to ship out. Very strange, in my opinion. But when they got to the point where just like, oh, our preliminary reports on the efficacies of these are high when you first get them, at the first 30 days after you get your first or second shot or whatever, the efficacy is very high. But they find that 3, 6, 9 months down the road, it drops off dramatically. And so, of course, you get these boosters. They start pushing these boosters through. 6, 7, 8 months later, they try to push these boosters through. But what was interesting is that the two big people higher up, I don't remember if it was the CDC or FDA. I'd have to Google it, and I don't want to break it up, this particular recording. But they actually stepped down. They're just like, we don't see these being beneficial due to what we've found, from the initials. And they gave in the resignations and they walked away from their positions. And what was interesting, now I don't know if it was due to, public outcry or if it was due to pressure being put on them by the administration. Who knows? I don't know. I'm just commentating on all these interesting things that I'm finding online. But then shortly after that, the boosters were approved. Even though they said, no, we're not doing this. But when people get to the point where they feel the need to protect the majority of Americans from themselves and the general public, when not only have they asked for it, but they feel like it's necessary to take away from them things like being canceled, like taking away their employment if they don't choose to do what they want them to do. And I think it's sad. So why are these mandates in place for a venereal disease that has killed less than 0.03% in America and less than 3% worldwide? Tinfoil hat time. Why is that? Why is it so important for people to force mask wearing, which, from what I understood and the things that I actually looked up, it didn't seem that masks, unless they were the N95 respirators with, able to, really cinch that on your face and fit properly, that was probably the best out of all the masks. And cloth and surgical masks were like the most least effective, at least according to the studies that I looked up. Tinfoil hat time. Maybe it's because it's about control. Maybe it's because if the government says, hey, you need to wear a mask, and hey, you need to close down your doors to your business and you need to stay at home because we said so, here's the problem. If most of America closed down their businesses, if most of America wore the masks, and most of America stayed at home, and they did that for a good portion of a year, even plus, what kind of power does that give government the next time they want to do it? Maybe they shut down everything for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Maybe they get to the point where they go, well, all you can just stay home. We'll take care of all your bills and everything. And we'll just have Amazon deliver stuff to you, Walmart, deliver stuff to you. And you'll just live out your life inside your home. And honestly, if I was supposed to, if in this theory that we're speaking of, if I'm supposed to live outside of my home for the rest of my life, that seems like a very boring life. There's still a lot of places I like to visit throughout the year, especially family. I think that'd be very detrimental to our mental health for sure. I think we can all agree the increase in crime during 2020 shutdown, the increase in domestic violence, both physical and sexual violence that occurred, huge increase in suicides, huge increase in mental health issues. I think looking at the data, we can all say that those closures did not help. It hurt not only the individuals, but their families, their friends, their coworkers. Many, many businesses folded due to it. I mean, look at all the businesses that closed in New York, in LA. Not to mention, like, I mean, there was a good handful of businesses that closed down and just refused to reopen. Look at our economic downturn. America is a nation of choice. I feel like if we lose the ability to choose, I question if we're even Americans anymore, if this is America anymore. If you take away our choice, are we America anymore? As I am certain the council would agree, it would be inappropriate to extend accidental death benefits where the employee refused to take a vaccine that had been found to be nearly 100% effective. Mitchell said in a letter to the council. The proposal has been tabled for further negotiation, according to a spokesperson of the mayor. So I believe, I firmly believe that these businesses and these local government organizations, they're trying to force their employees to take the vaccine by changing their benefits, by taking away their benefits, or like insurance not paying out. I think that is gross. And it's sad. And honestly, I think it's bullying. Like, people are being bullied into doing this now. I feel like if I was one of those people, you know, with one of these businesses, and I'm just like, all right, everybody needs to get the vaccine. Otherwise, you're no longer with us anymore. And as soon as they said no, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to change your benefits. Or you no longer have a job. That's so gross. I can't. I can't. The more that I dive into this stuff and the more that I become more informed, I'm just baffled. I am confused. My brain is exploding with what in the hell is going on with our country? What is going on in people's minds? Because it all comes down to these individuals who are making these decisions. I mean, granted, they're human beings, they're imperfect people. You know, it's really interesting. A couple of years back, my wife and I were talking about some kind of thing. I can't remember what it was. I think we might have been talking about rape culture or something like that. Anyways, we got into a heated debate, and she encouraged me to be more informed and to get involved and to know what's going on out there in the world. Because for me, I feel like the world is a better place if I don't know what's going on in it. Kind of like an ostrich with its head in the sand. I kind of like that idea. I like being naive in a lot of ways and uninformed, because I don't have to worry about it. If it's out of sight, it's out of mind, kind of a deal. And the more that I've been doing this, it makes me realize that there's a lot of people in this world that are good. And it's the very few that I feel that are perpetuating evil or negativity or what is wrong with the world. I found this quote interesting. This is from a CNN, or it's a quote from a CNN article, which I found very interesting. Because they said that it was nearly 100% effective. Now, I actually went on the CDC and FDA websites to get the reports from the different vaccines from the different companies that are creating these. And the report actually says that on the lowest end, it's about 85% effective, up to to the max, which is 95% effective. Now, English language is interesting, but if you say something that is nearly 100% effective, well, what are you saying? Are you saying it's 99% effective? I feel like that's misleading and almost to the point where it's misinformation, and others that are more black and white on the situation probably say that's a lie. Because the report on, Moderna, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, they're between 85% and 95% effective. And the preliminary reports on the after effects of these is that they're no longer effective after about 6 to 9 months, maybe a year for some people. And that's why they've brought out boosters. And what's interesting is that the push was to basically eliminate this disease, which is a variant disease, much like it's actually a variant of SARS. It's called SARS-2 COVID, right? It's a lot like the flu or a cold, which is a variant disease. And those come and go. They always mutate every few years, and people will always get it almost every year. So help me understand why, if people really have to keep an eye on our COVID obligations, we can do the weekly testing. Like, I feel like that's a happy middle ground. Do I like it? No. Because it's like, if you're sick, you stay home. You go get tested. If you're negative, you get better, you go back to work. But why are some people feeling that is not enough? Like, why? After all the data that we've gathered about the specific issue, quote unquote, why do people think that it's not enough? Why is it that people feel that we can't have the choice of to take it or not, or to do a different regimen or not, or, to take the risk of getting it and staying home, getting better and going back to work? I struggle with CNN, and I know I've already did some comments on some articles from CNN, because there are some people who write some very interesting things, and we have, commented on them. But that's it's a slippery slope when you're writing it's nearly 100% effective, because that's up to interpretation of the person that's receiving the information without any actual numbers, which the numbers are 85 to 95% effective. In my opinion, I think CNN is, having misinformation there a bit. And some people can say that they lied. And what about their track record? I think the Joe Rogan situation with ivermectin that he got prescribed to him by a doctor. And it's a very well-known medication. It's over, 40 years old? At least? Been used to cure river blindness. Its creator received a Nobel Prize, the Nobel Prize. It's also helped with a lot of other things. They've had a lot of success with it in, I believe it was India and a couple of other countries I can't name off the top of my head at this moment. So why is it that it's okay for CNN to literally lie about these things and give misinformation? But if somebody is against our agenda or our ideologies, or if you're on the right, ooh, how dare you? We will silence you. That's not okay. I think it'd be really interesting if they had a forum and or have somebody facilitate it, like someone like a Joe Rogan, where they had, right and left and center, and get those people to sit down and have a conversation, because I really feel, and there are some people doing that. Actually, there's some really good TikTok videos. There's some really good YouTube videos, Facebook videos with people that are actually trying to do that. Have people sit down from different sides of the aisle and different ideologies and different beliefs and thoughts and opinions, and have them sit down and find that they believe a lot of the same things. I find it very interesting. So, in summary, it's not fair for employers to change their employee benefits when they had already agreed to pay out if someone, passes away. It shouldn't matter if they got vaccinated or not, or if they died of COVID, regardless of their vaccination. And I think we need to agree that liberty and freedoms are at risk here. I think we can all agree that there's some shenanigans going on, both in the social media space, in our government, in our heads of state, in our local governments, in our schools. Oh my goodness, don't even get me started on all the shenanigans that are going on in schools right now. This country is about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And whatever that happiness is for you, like, you should be able to pursue it as long as it's not hurting anybody. And above all, we all need to become better people. I need to become a better person. My friends need to become better people. My coworkers need to become better people. My employer needs to become a better person. We should all be wanting to be better people. And I think we can. I have a very positive outlook as far as this is concerned. And I know things look sketchy right now. I think we can all agree that things look a little scary and very uncertain in the world right now. And why I think it's the best time to start pursuing, writing a book and, creating a new podcast when there's millions of podcasts out there, and I'm just kind of putting it out there and seeing what happens. Now is a great time to start reaching for the stars. And you know what? If you make it to the moon, I'm fine with that. Thank you all so much for listening to the podcast. The best way to help us out, to help get the word out there, is obviously to share the videos. If you find one of our podcasts that you really, really enjoy, share it with your family and friends, coworkers. Leave a comment. Give us a like. Hopefully we've earned your subscription. And if we haven't, hopefully we'll earn it in the next one. So thank you all so much for listening. We really do appreciate it. And from our family to yours, good night.